Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and I'm back after a long hiatus, a longer hiatus than I expected. Still been playing the game a little bit. Just wanted to take a break, I guess, from loading some videos, and I was playing some other games as well that took my time and games that I didn't really want to add to the channel. And so uh, I left this Phillies playthrough right where it was, which was the end of the 2036 season. We're going into the offseason, and I thought it was time to pick it back up. We're probably going to have 2020 out of the park baseball. Uh, version 20 is going to be coming out pretty soon, and I want to be ready for that. And then I really want to push this Phillies team back into the playoffs and hopefully into the World Series. It's been not a very good run for me. Not as good as I'm used to with this game. Just this is the home screen. You look at my history. Um, 20 years managing. I GM and managing in this one. A record of 1610, 1631, so below 500. In those 20 years, only 5 playoff appearances, no championships. Have never even made the World Series. Um, if you haven't followed along, I mean, I know we're up to 36, 37 episodes now, but um, I didn't use the challenge mode in terms of logging into the to out of the park servers and keeping up with the score or anything, but I used the settings that challenge mode uses, and it creates kind of a fog of war effect, I think, in the game. And you can't edit your players, for instance. You can't look at in just the regular game. You're able to go in and look at their fatigue numbers, their fatigue ratings, so you can see if a guy is rated as fatigued. You can actually go in there and see that on a scale of 200, he might be on the high side or the low side, and so you can kind of use that to factor in, well, should I give this guy a long-term contract or not? Things like that. You can also, in the regular game, you can, if you're using scouting as I am, you can scout players based on the level that they're at, and that gives you a better idea of when to promote a person. You know, like you can take a look at a player in Double A, see how he scouts against Triple A, and if his numbers are good, then you know, hey, this guy, I can probably move him up and he'll progress and potentially make it to the majors that way. So I can't do that, and all those things together, as I've been talking about in the last couple episodes, at least, of this playthrough, have kind of led me to a team that's really struggling all around. In some ways, budget's not too bad, so we're not completely out of money, but the minor league farm system is really tanked. And just to give you an idea of this, if we looked at the minor league system rankings for the league, we're 24th out of 30th. We've got a couple of guys, and really the only guy that I think has a chance is Ian Norman, who I finally moved up to AAA. But again, I don't know if he's ready for AAA because my scout has him just a half-star current rating overall, even though he has a 5-star potential. And he's looked okay in the minors at every step he's been, but it's hard to tell if he's really going to be ready anytime soon. But he is probably my only true certainty as a prospect. Looking at the rest of the minors here, it's really slim. I mean, Bobby Kirtley here might be some guy who in a pinch could give me some bullpen help if I start getting injuries. Looking down into Double A, well, I do have some decent pitching prospects here, like Luis Contreras, who's a former first-round pick. He's moved up to AAA for the first time. I'm hoping that he responds to that. Ken Dion was another pretty high draft pick, third. He's got some good overall ratings. One of the things I like about starting pitching prospects and what I go for, I look for, of course, the stuff, movement, control. I look for good ratings there. But with a starter, you want to get a starter who's got at least, I'd say 3, 4 is optimal and above of good pitches. So this guy has a good fastball, potentially good cutter, forkball, but he's got 5 pitches overall. So he's got a chance with the stamina of making it as a starter. But not too bad at the Double-A level. But when you get past that, I mean, no real true superstar type prospects. Josh Dean here's got a 4-star potential. Maybe he'll make it. Benefield 4.5, maybe. But it's been really hard to manage that minor league farm system without knowing when it's time to move these guys up. So I'm struggling on that. And then the eternal struggle, which I continue to talk about in this playthrough and also the Reds playthrough, is it's really tough to get pitching in this version of out of the park baseball. And I think, I think it's just a lot of it is the AI has become better at protecting its superstars and keeping its superstars. And so you're not seeing as many good 4 and 5-star players, pitcher or position players on the market. But pitching especially, it's really hard. But one of the things that I've just kind of come to accept, now if you have been watching my Cincinnati Reds playthrough, I played GM only on that one, so I didn't really do the managing of the team. And 5 years in, taking over that Reds team with Girardi as the manager hire, we made the World Series and won it. And I ended that series at that point because I thought, hey, I achieved what I set out to achieve, and maybe I'll move on, get back to this Phillies one, and maybe come up with a different challenge later on. But I did keep playing it offline, and one of the things that happened is another 5 years on, I got to the World Series again and won it. And I did it mainly through offense, and I've come to accept the fact that I think another thing that's happened with Out of the Park Baseball 19, I know you've heard me rail about it, I'm probably going to stop complaining, but I think they've tightened the star ratings, which is what I primarily use along with the scouting reports to manage my teams and players. I think they've tightened those ratings up to the point where 4 and 5-star players are going to be the exception. And it might even be the exception that a team may only have 1 or 2 of those. A good team may only have only 1 or 2 of those type players, caliber players, to throw out there, especially with pitching. And if you just think of it as in terms of the 5-star rating system, all things being equal, 2.5 stars should be basically an average player, 3 should be above average. So you can build a winner, which is what I found in that Reds playthrough. You can build a winning team if you just focus on balance and consistency with your starting staff. If you've got 5 starters with 3 and 3 stars only even, and that's the top pitcher you have. You don't have a dominating 4 and 5-star Clayton Kershaw or that type pitcher. You can win in this version of Out of the Park Baseball. That's been my experience. So with that in mind, I'm going to try to keep that in mind as I go along in this Phillies playthrough and try to get him back into the playoffs, because I feel like I've spent so much energy trying to get those kind of pitchers that I'm probably neglecting some of the offense. And, it's as long as I've got a decent offense, a decent pitching staff, and if I've got a great offense, hey, I can still win it. So I guess that's enough rambling. We can take a look at the team now. I wanted to take a look to just to give anybody who may just be joining for the first time, we'll take a look at my history here, right? And you can see we're in a tailspin since, I would say, 2032. So the last 4 seasons have been very disappointing. We had our worst season ever after winning the division in 2032. And we haven't really recovered from that. We're still, the last 2 years, we've gotten worse. Anytime you see that trend, 82 wins, 79, 75, it's a downward trend that I like to. I'm hoping we can turn around, but this has been a challenging playthrough overall. Now, what's making it even more challenging is the goals from my owner. The original owner died, and the original owner's son took over. The original owner was fairly generous, now that I look back on it. The new guy, as soon as he came in, started cutting budget. And it's very hard to really compete in the free agent market, as you can imagine, with no budget. But on the flip side, he's not really all that challenging right now in terms of his goals either. So you can see 2037, play close to 500 ball, and just the goals he has short term are pretty easy, except for this balance thing. He really is focused on the money. So it's a great thing that the game does when you're playing like this. If you're not GM only, or excuse me, if you're not, I forget the setting, but if you're not controlling everything, where you can't get fired and stuff, the game will throw challenges out like this. And so one of them is the type of owner you get. If you got an owner who's generous, makes a big difference in terms of the money you've got to play with and how you can build your team. Some challenge there. So farm system and budget, biggest constraints. Now, taking that into account, I want to look at, well, let's do this. Let's look at the overall team first, and I'll look at the pitching staff. And this is kind of the team that we had last year. Juan Mendoza was our closer. He's probably going to be our closer again. Got this guy really cheap. Salary in 2037 of $1.3 million. That's really good. He's got some great individual ratings. I think he's a definite fit as the closer, and my scout seems to think the same thing. It might be tougher after next year to keep him at that salary, but I'm hoping that I'm set there. Got a few other guys in the bullpen, like John Ward. Just picked him up, I guess, in the offseason for Juan Padilla, which pretty good trade there. Padilla wasn't going anywhere at first, so he wasn't going to be a really big contributor to the team. And then after those two in the bullpen, Espinal is probably my best player. He's a guy that I drafted originally as a starter, but he doesn't have the stamina, and he doesn't have that third strong pitch to really make him into a starter. So he's just become primarily a bullpen pitcher. Was a closer for a time last year when it didn't have anyone else, and my scout thinks he could eventually step into a closer's role. So we'll see how he plays out. So he could be the closer of the future if I can't keep Mendoza. And those might be the stars of the team. McSparron is a guy I've signed. He's signed for one more year. He has great individual numbers, but he's a 2.5 star overall pitcher, which puts him at about average. And he's only had 2 really decent years for me. He's up and down, and I don't know why I keep re-signing him, but again, that's just kind of the place I'm at with pitching in this playthrough. It's hard to keep. But having said that, this guy was a 3.2 wins above replacement pitcher last year. So for $6 million, and maybe I can squeeze out another year like he had, say, in 2032 or 2035 even. ERA below 4 and double digits in wins. Kurt Hines was a surprise. I traded for him last year, and he really took off for me in the second half of the year. 7 wins and 13 starts, 3.70 ERA. But he's got the individual numbers, but he's 2-star overall from my scout, 2.5 stars. Maybe the OSA scouting system likes him a little bit better, but he's not going to be somebody you can really depend on. I think Rob LaRue, who was injured a lot the last 2 years, is probably my strongest starting pitcher. I signed him for a pretty big contract as a free agent a few years ago. Again, one of those signings where I've spent a lot of money because I could not find the 4 and 5 star pitching that I thought I needed. So I got this guy at a lot of money, and he's signed for, I guess, 2 more seasons potentially, and I just hope he does a little bit better. The first year of his contract, it wasn't too bad. 13 wins, 3.4 wins above replacement, even 200 plus strikeouts. But I don't know. He's a 3-star pitcher overall. He's probably the best rated pitcher, and I'll take a look at that right now. He's probably the best rated pitcher in that starting lineup. But yeah, he is 3 stars. Gosh, he's really soaking me with that money. So if you look at the starting lineup, starting staff, I've got 4 guys here are 2.5 or better. McSparren, Lugo, again, pretty decent individual ratings. He wasn't too bad last year. A guy I picked up in trade. He might be somebody I'm going to have to depend on. And then Hartling, another guy I traded for a couple years ago. Thought he was going to be a little bit better pitcher than he was. I would, at this point, rather move him back into the lineup, even though he's got 4 strong pitches. His movement is really bad. It's going to lead to a lot of home runs. That's usually, that movement rating corresponds to a lot of home runs. So I don't expect this guy to really be a long-term addition for me. So if going into next year, I could see Hines being the 5th starter based on what he did last year and his individual ratings. LaRue, Lugo are going to make it, and McSparren. So I need one more pitcher. I think I need one more starting pitcher in that staff, and boy, I need a lot in the bullpen. Ward's going to be there, Mendoza there, Espinal there. Furlong, man, I've had a kind of a love-hate relationship with him. He's a lefty. He's got good ratings against lefties. He's got good ratings individually overall. I just think his numbers haven't really corresponded to the ratings. But it really is the weakness going into the season is that pitching if I don't do anything about it. Now, if I look at the lineups, I think that's a different story. I think we've got some good offense to pull from. And Kwarteng is settled into the pitching or the catching duties. He's an all-star a couple years ago. 3-star pitcher. He's got some good offensive ratings. Pretty decent defensively. He's not going to be a long-term solution at catcher, but what can you do? Cochran was a guy who I picked up in the offseason last year because I loved his individual ratings, even though his star ratings were terrible. And he developed like I thought he was going to. He had a great rookie year. That's a pretty good line for a first-year player at age 23. But the star ratings scare me for him. So I went and did something kind of odd. I traded for this guy, Josh Gordon, who's rated as one of the best offensive players, I think, in this league. His salary wasn't too bad. He's got a player opt-out, which I honestly expect him to take next year. So I thought, he might surprise me and stay with the team for $20 million a year. And if he does, I'll have problems. But he's still young. He's in the prime of his life or his career, and he's put up some really good numbers. And so I think this guy you could potentially build your offense around. So after picking him up, and I picked him up basically by trading away Lou Villa, who 4-star player. This guy has great upside if he's healthy. He's just never healthy. And I've talked about him before, I think, in previous episodes. I take a look at what he did in 2035, for instance. just a little bit over a half season, really, and he was a 4.1 wins above replacement. Great overall player. He just could never play enough to get the numbers that I needed. So I decided to throw him out there and see what I could get, and Josh Gordon came back. Koopman is a guy who 2.5-star rating, second baseman, but he's got good defensive ratings, good speed, good offense. He led the league in batting last year, so I'm pretty happy with him. Lohman is one of my biggest free agent signings from a few years ago. He's lost a little bit in terms of the player that he used to be, but I still think like his average was down to 242 last year, so I'm hoping that he bounces back from that. He's signed for another 3 years, so pretty big contract on him. Swan is a guy I picked up from the Cubs last year in a trade. He's got great speed, led the league in stolen bases. I like speedy players, good defensive shortstop, so 3.5-star rated player. I think he's going to really keep that shortstop position pretty easily unless he gets injured. The problem I'm having on the team is really in the outfield, which is honestly unexpected. And in the past, outfield is usually a pretty good offensive or an easy, I think, part of the team to build in this game because, there's a lot of outfielders available. It seems like every playthrough I've ever had, every year, there's always plenty of outfielders to choose from. This playthrough has been kind of slim, and Vargas is a guy who's, if you've watched this series talk about love-hate relationships, definitely have had a love-hate relationship with this guy. Signed him long-term when he was at the pinnacle of his career, and now until I get to this team option, probably going to have him for another couple years. Great player at times. It's just he's not the player that he used to be. He was a center fielder, and you can see, I think, like in these 2 years here, he was probably one of the best players in the game overall when you factor in that he was doing this on top of being a very good defensive center fielder. But he's fallen off so far in his defensive ratings. I'm going to have to move him to left field this year, no question. And we'll see how that plays out, but I'm going to have to pick up a center fielder and a right fielder. And I've had some viewers in the past comment about this guy, and I know he's at this point he's just an average player, but those individual ratings I still like. I like the speed. One of the things that redeems him, he gets on base. 90 walks last year, 80, 91 in the last 3 years. He is still a very good leadoff hitter. Look at the run totals, 95, 103, 95. So even with that low batting average, I can deal with that. I just got to make sure that he's in the right position defensively. Now, I want to look at the batting ratings. So I've got a pretty good team here, I think, offensively. 1 4.5-star guy, 4-star guy, 3.5, 3, 2.5. But, even those guys have good individual ratings. I've got to work on building up that outfield. I think that's where the struggle is. And see if I'm missing anything. Third base covered, shortstop, first base definitely covered with Josh Gordon. So that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm looking at in the offseason. Picking up the outfield and knowing that I've got a limited budget to do it, and then seeing what I can get on the pitching staff. So with that in mind too, I have already made an offer in free agency. I don't know if I'm going to get it. It's a guy who was here last year, and it's Eric Madrak, who never really turned into the pitcher I thought he was going to be. I gave him a pretty big contract to come over. He's given up a lot of home runs, but he was double digits in wins. His individual ratings are strong, and I offered a 1-year contract. Let me see here, a little over $9 million. Right now, he favors that offer. I don't expect him to keep it. But we'll see what happens. But that's where I'm at with him. So we are just starting the winter meetings, I believe. Yep, winter meetings. I'm going to look real quick to see if I have anybody that I can trade, that I'd be willing to trade. And the only one really that I'd be really willing to trade, since I picked up Gordon, Cochran is coming off. He's coming off a good rookie season. I wish I could remember how he finished in the voting. He was top 5 in the voting. So I'm going to go ahead and throw him out there. I'm shopping this player around, and that's one of the things I've always been doing. It's kind of like my handicap I place on myself is I usually don't do many blockbuster trades or multiplayer trades. Occasionally I will. Just depends on the situation I'm in. And so I'm going to, usually when you watch these series, if you see me doing trades, it's basically like this. I throw it out there and see what I can get one-on-one. And so right away for Cochran, I'm seeing a lot of 2-stars that I don't need, and a lot of 2-stars with heavy contracts. Like shortstop, I'm pretty happy. I really like Mike Swan. I think that was a good pickup at short. Dusty Kuhn. Nah, I mean he's got some good power, but boy, I really want to stay away from that personality. I'd really like to get a good pitcher, and here's a couple from the Cubs. A starting pitcher, 3-star, Brad DeWolf. But man, 15 plus million for 2 years for this guy. I just I don't really have that money. And same, Garrett Prescott looks like a good closer for the most part. I don't know if I would use him as a closer on my team. He'd probably be set up. But 13 million, that's too high. But now here, Bobby Ward, it scares me. I go for balance, when I'm looking at these players. I don't like anything that dips, any rating really that dips below double digits. I stay away from, and I use a scale 1 to 20. So anything below 10, I'm gonna stay away from. Braden Krause, fragile, and just way too high of a contract. He looks pretty decent, but I don't really want to spend that much either. Now here's Nehemiah Lucky. Ugh. I don't think he's worth the gamble. Man, just a lot of, and I think this is kind of where this league is developed. I mean, it's really hard to see many players above 3 stars. Now here's Arnick for St. Louis. Man, stamina. It's just terrible. I can't see doing that. So we got Pat Tracy, 2.5 stars, but 14, almost $15 million. Now how about Alfredo Ortega? He's fragile though. I like his individual ratings though. Even those controls on the low side at 10. He's got good stuff. Oh, here we go. Zach Rowland, who wants to be the closer. He would not be the closer on our team. So he would probably just be upset. Mike Cuman's finally an offensive player. It looks good, but not good enough. Don't need a third baseman. Man, not really getting a whole lot for Cochran. I expected more. This guy, I definitely like his ratings. He wants to be in the starting rotation, though, and he's closer only. Chris Bailey. I think what hurts him, I mean, he has fairly decent individual ratings, but the movement hurts him a little bit, and he's going to give up a lot of home runs. You can see 32, 23, 35 in the last few years. Wow. Really thought I was going to get more for Tracy, or Cochran, sorry. And we're in a league right now. I mean, it's there is no DH in this league. That's one of the things that in the Cincinnati Reds playthrough, I have the setting turned on to where you can evolve. The league evolves on its own, and they voted to have the National League with DH. If the National League had a DH, I think Cochran would be a great candidate for a DH role. He's not strong defensively. It's just that with that individual rating, or the 1 and 2 star rating, I don't expect he's gonna repeat. It's just not really getting much for him. And honestly, I thought he was my best trade candidate because of the year that he had. Now this is a guy. No, didn't like his movement. Now he wasn't too bad, but I really think I'm just going to move on from the trading, as much as I hate to do it. Let me go through and just sim ahead through the winter meetings and see if I get any options. And see what's going on with the news. And Madrak is already getting higher contracts, so which I expected. Let me see what I can get. A 1 year, I pay $9.8 million. I'll still go for that, and I might even go as high as 11 or 12 million for this guy, because that's how it tough it is to get pitching in this league. And now I've got a trade proposal. So Los Angeles would give me a pretty decent starting pitcher, but one who's fragile. And I know who they're going for. They're going for my closer, who's 5-star. The only 5-star player on the team I got to add to. So I'm not going to give away a 5-star player that I'm paying $1.3 million for. So the last thing I'll probably do in this episode, I know it's probably not a whole lot of gameplay, but I wanted to just kind of get back in touch with you guys again and get it started. I'm going to go with the Rule 5 draft, and I'll go ahead and show you how I handle the Rule 5 draft, and it looks like it's probably going to be pretty slim already if these are the best players available, 2.5 stars. But I usually, when the draft starts, I'll go in and I'll look at the draft pool and I'll change it to default. And then I'll go and filter it by team. And so I know that the teams that I have in my system, rating at AA, Lehigh Valley at AAA, Lakewood and Lake Valley or something like that. Let me look real quick. Clearwater and Lakewood. Those are the teams that I primarily want to look at to make sure I'm not giving away any prospects on the in the draft. So I'm going to go through. First team I'll look at here looks probably going to be Clearwater, and I just want to make sure that I'm not leaving some potential high-rated player out there. So I've got a couple guys rated, 3 or 4 guys rated 1.5 stars potential, so nothing really bad there. Now I'll go to the Lakewood. And Lakewood is the low A, so it's probably not going to be anybody there that's no prospects there. So now we'll go to Lehigh Valley. Bobby Kirtley might be somebody I need as the season goes on if I get some injuries happen. So I'm going to put him on that secondary roster and protect him so that he's not available in the draft. And then Cabrera, I can let him go if it comes to that. And then Aguirre, who might get a look, probably will get a look in the minors unless I lose him here, because, and you know what, I'm gonna keep him. My scout thinks a little bit better on him in terms of individual ratings, and this guy has produced every level that he's been on. I sent him up to AAA this year. It would be his first year at AAA, but I like the way he's produced, so I'm going to put him on secondary and protect him. And then that leaves, Redding, and I can't remember. I think I do have some pretty decent 3-star prospects at Redding. Yep, I do. Betancourt. And I could see this guy. He's fragile. He's another guy who's produced, for the most part, at the levels that he's been on. Man, I can't. He's too young to protect, I think, right now, and with those numbers. And he's a scouting discovery too, which is rare. I feel like this guy could probably. He's not going to be a starter in the majors, I don't think, but if I were to set him, say, at reliever, didn't really do much now, but I think as he gets closer to the majors, he'll probably fit in better as a reliever. So I hate to lose a 2.5-star prospect, but I'm not going to put him on the 30-man or 40-man right now. So let's go ahead and go through the draft. We're drafting pretty high. We've got a ninth pick there. And we're going to auto draft until my pick. And then let's just look at batting ratings and see. I'd like to pick up some outfield depth if it's available. Doesn't look like it. Looks like mainly these players showing up are pitchers. So I got Nehemiah Lucky, who was a guy who was offered in trade. I don't like his individual ratings. Don't scare me so much. It's his personality. I don't want to throw that guy into the midst of our team. This guy, though, he's an extremely hard worker. He's got 2 solid pitches. Could potentially be a setup guy. Scouting, my scout thinks, he's got that typical lefty-righty split issue, but it's not too bad. He's got a 16 stuff against lefties. He could really do well against righties, though. I'm gonna pick him up because it's a sign of both the money situation I'm in and just the pitching situation that I'm in. I'm gonna have to get somebody. It's like throwing warm bodies out there, I guess. But outside of that, I'm not seeing anything. This guy could potentially be a decent bench player. Got some good individual ratings. Not rated as high from OSA, just like a 0.5 star. But let me take a look at my depth chart when it comes to. I got Siegel still hanging around there, and he can play multiple positions. Yeah, I'll probably risk that. And so I'm continuing here. So these are all the batters. A lot of 1.5 star guys there. Nothing that makes me think I'm going to have anyone who's going to be able to contribute. This guy, he might contribute in the outfield, but I probably would rather hang around and see what I can get out of free agency. So let's go ahead and finish out the Rule 5 draft. Not much there. There was a time when the Rule 5 draft was a little bit more generous to me, but it's been hard to find lately. So now looks like, man, it looks like I'm going to have to try and get. What I really need is, I think I'm going to go with, and Tipton's not somebody I'd like to go full time at right, but I think he'll do in a pinch. But I'm going to try to move Vargas to left. So I need a center fielder. Katola, his ratings against righties not so bad. I mean, he's got some good speed. He's good defender overall. I'd rather have him off the bench. So let me see what's available free agency. Once again, nobody in the waiver wire, but in terms of, we'll look at center fielder first. Oh my gosh. Not much. I mean, a couple 2.5 stars, and that's it. And this guy, Austin Beck, is wrecked. He's rated as a center fielder, but he's not strong as a center fielder. His corner outfield ratings are a lot better. Austin Beck is a guy who drafted in 2018, looks like. Didn't turn into the superstar, I think. It was expected he was going to be. Jim Elliott, oh man. Skylar Collins, guy I've seen around several times. He's got some. I don't think he should be in the starting lineup, but he's got some good individual numbers. I think from a position of like, hey, this got to be a good backup if he was able to play all 3 outfield positions. $4 million I'm not going to go with, even though he's had some good offensive years, but they've been at Colorado, and for the most part, he did have a decent year at Seattle. So that always kind of throws me off a little bit. So that's it. Man. I mean, for me, I've got, it looks like 7 outfielders on the roster right now. These 5, Dusty Stern, you had him in there. I hate to go with what I went with last year because that led to that losing year. But that's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick up anything better than that in free agency. I'll look at all outfielders and just see. There's a right fielder, Lupe Vera, $17 million. Poor defender. I'm not going to pay him that much money. And then Austin Beck. Those are the best. Holy cow. Gabriel Guerrero, one of the best players all time in this league, but he's 43. He's at the end of his career. He's not going to give you good defensive ratings. Still probably give you some offense. He could go to a team as a DH, but how good is he? Let me just show you if you haven't watched the playthrough. Broke in with the Reds, multiple All-Stars and Silver Sluggers, but career 610 home runs, 1,600 plus RBIs, 80 wins above replacement. This guy's a Hall of Famer. But that's about it to choose from. Caballos, he can play multiple positions. He might be somebody I would pick up just because might give me some help off the bench with that rating. And I might look at him, honestly. Decent speed, but $1.3 million. He could replace, say, Dusty Stern on my team because I don't think Dusty Stern has enough to start full time, even though he did start most of the year last year, 85 games, and had a pretty decent run. Man, it's so tough to build a team in this league. This is by far the toughest playthrough I've had to go through. But I'm going to end this one. We're getting a little bit long. I'm going to end this one right now. I'm probably going to sim ahead through the rest of the offseason, start back up with spring training next, it's 2037 season. And hopefully I'll be able to, at that point, I'm going to, we'll do one more thing. Sorry, I must hit that one. One more thing before I go. One of the things I do like to do when it comes to free agency for relievers, there's usually a lot more available. I mean, like you go from here up, some of these 3 stars, say Montalvo, for instance, who has been played with us before. If he's still hanging around there, and as we get close to spring training, I can usually get a better deal for some of these guys. So I probably will try to pick up a couple, like Phil Carey might be a good, man, he was 41 saves last year. But I'll probably pick up a couple of these guys as we get close to spring training, and then try to sign Madrak as a starting pitcher, and then look for options on picking up one more outfielder. But that's the goal to go into spring training with. But as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll get back on a regular schedule here with this series and try to get these guys into the playoffs and World Series. That'd be my goal before the next version of Out of the Park Baseball hits, and I'll probably try something new when it hits, some new challenge. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next episode.